Captain Hanwoo stood on the bridge of the UES Pathfinder, watching the stars thin out to almost nothing. They had been traveling for 6 months to reach this place at the very edge of their galaxy. Most people thought there was nothing out here except empty space and darkness. Hanwoo hoped they were wrong. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Park Tae from his station. The young officer had been with them for 2 years and had never seen anything like this before. Hanwoo walked over to look at Park Tae's screen. "What kind of strange?" "It's big, sir. Really big. And it's not moving with the galactic rotation like it should be. It's just sitting there in empty space." Dr. Kim Ara looked up from her research station. She was the ship's expert on old alien technology and had joined this mission hoping to find something new. "How big are we talking about?" Park Tae checked his readings again. "About the size of a small moon, but the density readings don't make sense. It's too light to be rock or metal." "Put it on the main screen," Hanwoo ordered. The view screen flickered and showed them what their sensors had found. Everyone on the bridge went quiet. Floating in the black void between galaxies was a massive structure that looked like nothing they had ever seen. It was dark gray and covered with strange patterns that seemed to glow faintly. The shape was not quite round and not quite square, as if someone had tried to build something that hurt to look at directly. "That's not natural," whispered Engineer Lee Bo from the back of the bridge. He had worked with alien technology for 15 years and knew the difference between something made by nature and something built by intelligent beings. Dr. Kim Ara was already running scans. "The materials are unknown. The computer can't identify what it's made of, but I'm getting energy readings from inside. Whatever this is, it's still active after who knows how long." Hanwoo made his decision quickly. As captain, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something told him this discovery was important. "Set course for that structure, but keep us at a safe distance until we know what we're dealing with." As the Pathfinder moved closer over the next few hours, the structure became even more mysterious. It was covered in symbols and markings that no human had ever seen before. Some parts of it seemed to change shape when they weren't looking directly at it. "Captain, I'm detecting what might be docking ports," said Park Tae. "Or at least openings that look like they could fit a ship our size." Lee Bo shook his head. "I don't like this. Something that old shouldn't still have power. What if it's a trap?" "Everything unknown is potentially dangerous," Hanwoo replied. "But that's why we're out here, to find things that no human has found before." Dr. Kim Ara finished her preliminary scans. "The good news is that I'm not detecting any weapons or hostile activity. The energy readings suggest some kind of computer or data storage system. This might be an abandoned library or research station." "Abandoned by who?" asked Park Tae. "There are no records of any species ever building anything like this." "That's exactly why we need to investigate," Hanwoo said. "Dr. Kim, prepare a survey team. Lee Bo, I want you to examine their docking systems. If this thing is as old as it looks, we might be the first visitors it's had in a very long time." The survey team spent the rest of the day preparing their equipment. They packed scanners, translation computers, and emergency gear. Nobody knew what they would find inside the ancient structure. Dr. Kim Ara couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about the symbols on the structure's surface. They reminded her of something, but she couldn't figure out what. In her 20 years of studying alien technology, she had learned that the oldest artifacts were often the most dangerous. The next morning, Hanwoo gathered his team in the shuttle bay. "We're going to dock with the structure and conduct a preliminary survey. Our mission is to gather information, not to take risks. If anything seems dangerous, we leave immediately." The shuttle approached one of the docking ports slowly. To everyone's surprise, the port opened automatically as they got close. Lights came on inside the structure as if it had been waiting for visitors. "That's not normal," muttered Lee Bo as he piloted the shuttle inside. "This thing has been dead for maybe millions of years, but it knows we're here." They docked successfully and put on their environmental suits before opening the shuttle door. The atmosphere inside the structure was breathable but strange. It tasted old, like air that had been recycled for centuries. The interior was even more mysterious than the outside. The walls were covered with the same glowing symbols, but now they seemed to pulse gently. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. "These symbols," Dr. Kim Ara said, running her scanner over them. "They're not just decorative. I think there's some kind of writing system, but it's more complex than anything I've seen before. Each symbol seems to contain multiple layers of meaning." As they walked deeper into the structure, they found rooms filled with strange devices. Some looked like computers, others like scientific instruments. Everything was built on a massive scale and from materials that their scanners couldn't identify. "Captain," Park Tae called from ahead, "you need to see this." They followed him into a huge circular room with a high ceiling. In the center was a platform surrounded by floating screens that showed star maps and symbols. But these weren't maps of their galaxy. These were maps of many galaxies, stretching across distances that would take millions of years to travel. "This isn't just a research station," Dr. Kim Ara whispered. "This is something much bigger. Whoever built this was studying the entire universe." Hanwoo walked up to the central platform. As soon as he stepped on it, the screens around them came alive with new information. Symbols flowed across the displays like water, and somewhere in the structure they could hear a deep humming sound starting up. "Captain, we should leave," Lebo said nervously. "We don't know what we just activated." But Dr. Kim Ara was fascinated. "Wait, look at this. The symbols are changing. It's like the system is trying to communicate with us." One of the screens showed what looked like a warning message, repeated in dozens of different symbol systems. None of them were familiar, but the meaning seemed clear. "Danger." "What kind of danger?" Hanwoo asked, but the ancient system couldn't answer in words they understood. The humming grew louder, and more systems throughout the structure began to activate. Lights came on in distant corridors, and they could hear machinery starting up after what must have been millions of years of silence. "I think we need to report this to Earth Command," Hanwoo said finally. "This is bigger than anything we can handle alone." But as they prepared to leave, Dr. Kim Ara made one more discovery. Hidden in the symbol patterns, she found something that made her blood run cold. It was a countdown, and according to her rough translation, it was counting down to 0. The question was, 0 what? As the Pathfinder pulled away from the ancient structure, none of them knew that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping at the edge of the galaxy for billions of years. Something that was about to change the fate of every living being in the universe. The message from the Pathfinder reached Earth Command 3 weeks later. Within hours, every major government and scientific organization on Earth was in emergency session. Within days, the news had spread to humanity's colonies across known space. Ambassador Yoon Hye sat in her office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Centauri Prime, reading the reports for the 10th time. As Earth's representative to the Galactic Consortium, she knew that this discovery would change everything. The question was how badly. "Ma'am, we're receiving priority communications from all 5 consortium species," her aide informed her. "They all want immediate meetings about the human discovery at the Galactic Rim." Yoon Hye sighed. She had expected this. The Galactic Consortium was made up of 5 species that had controlled galactic politics for thousands of years. Humanity was still considered the new species, barely tolerated and certainly not trusted with important discoveries. "Schedule them all for today, and send a message to Commander Choi Bin. Tell him to prepare the defense fleet for possible deployment." The first meeting was with the Altarians, a species that looked like tall, blue-skinned humans with extra arms. Their ambassador, Viltar, got straight to the point. "The structure your people found belongs to the galactic community, not to Earth alone," he said. "The consortium demands immediate access to the site and all research data." "The structure was found in neutral space by a human exploration vessel," Yoon Hye replied calmly. "Under galactic law, the discoverers have first rights to investigate." Galactic law was written when humans were still living in caves, Veltar snapped. "This discovery is too important to be left to a species that barely knows how to travel between stars." The meetings with the other 4 species went similarly. Each one demanded access to the structure, and each one made it clear that they considered humanity unfit to handle such an important discovery. But Yoon Hye noticed something interesting in their demands. They all seemed to know more about the structure than they were admitting. That evening, she received a coded transmission from Commander Choi Bin. His message was brief but alarming. "Multiple alien fleets moving toward the rim. They're not coming to talk." Back at the ancient structure, Captain Hanwoo watched the first alien ships arrive on his sensors. He had been expecting this, but hoped he would have more time to study the artifact before the politicians got involved. "How many ships?" he asked Park Tae. 17 so far, sir. 3 different species. More arriving every hour." Dr. Kim Ara looked up from her research station. She had been working day and night to translate more of the ancient symbols. "Captain, I need to show you something important. I've been analyzing the warning messages in the structure's computer." She put her findings on the main screen. "These symbols keep appearing throughout the database. As near as I can translate, they refer to something called the silence. And Captain, I think the countdown we found is related to it." "What kind of countdown?" Han Wu asked. "I'm not sure yet, but the pattern suggests we have maybe 50 or 60 years before whatever this is happens. The problem is that the alien ships out there might prevent us from learning more." Li Bo had been monitoring communications from the approaching fleets. "Captain, they're demanding that we leave the structure immediately. They say it belongs to the galactic community and humans have no right to be here." "Do they have the legal authority to make that demand?" Han Wu asked. "In neutral space? No. But they have the firepower to make it stick." The first attempt by alien scientists to access the structure happened the next day. A team from the Altarian fleet approached the docking port where the humans had first entered. But when they tried to board, nothing happened. The doors didn't open, the lights didn't come on, and their equipment couldn't interface with the ancient systems. "Try the other docking ports," ordered the Altarian commander. They tried all 6 docking ports. None of them responded to alien technology. The structure remained as dark and silent as it had been for millions of years. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim Ara had made another disturbing discovery. "Captain, I think I know why the aliens can't get in. The structure isn't just a computer or a library. It's some kind of biological interface system. It reads the neural patterns of anyone who approaches it." "What does that mean?" "It means the system was designed to work with specific types of brains. Human brains, apparently. We're the only species whose neural patterns match whatever the builders programmed into the system." This news spread quickly through the alien fleets. Within hours, Ambassador Yun Hai was receiving angry messages from all 5 consortium species. They accused humanity of lying about the discovery and demanded that human scientists share their access codes immediately. "There are no access codes," Yun Hai explained to the consortium leaders during an emergency conference call. "Our people are as surprised as you are that the system responds to them." "Impossible," said the Zephyrian representative. "No ancient technology has ever shown species-specific activation. This is clearly a human trick." But when consortium scientists tried to analyze the structure's outer hull, they confirmed what the humans had discovered. The ancient builders had created a system that would only respond to specific neural patterns. Patterns that matched human brain activity almost perfectly. Commander Choi Bin arrived at the rim with a full defense fleet, just as tensions were reaching the breaking point. His 12 ships were outnumbered by the alien vessels, but they were the newest and most advanced ships in the human fleet. "Captain Han Wu, this is Commander Choi Bin," he transmitted on a secure channel. "I have orders from Earth Command to protect the research site at all costs." "What's your status?" "We're safe for now, but the aliens are getting more aggressive. They've tried to force their way into the structure twice today." Dr. Kim Ara had been listening to the conversation. "Commander, you need to know what we found in here. This isn't just some ancient library. The builders left warnings about something catastrophic, something they called the silence." "What kind of warnings?" "The kind that suggest entire civilizations have been wiped out before. And according to the countdown we found, it might happen again soon." That night, the Altarian fleet tried to take the structure by force. Their ships surrounded the ancient artifact and demanded that all humans leave immediately. When Captain Han Wu refused, they began charging their weapons. Commander Choi Bin moved his fleet between the aliens and the structure. "This is Commander Choi Bin of the Earth Defense Force. The structure is in neutral space and under the protection of human forces. Any attack will be considered an act of war." "You are outnumbered 3-1, the Altarian commander replied. "Withdraw your ships or we will destroy them. You're welcome to try." For 12 hours, the 2 fleets faced each other in tense standoff. More alien ships arrived throughout the night, but so did human reinforcements. By morning, nearly 100 ships from 6 different species were gathered around the ancient structure. Inside the artifact, Dr. Kim Ara was working frantically to decode more of the warnings. She had figured out that the silence was not a weapon or a natural disaster. It was something much worse. "Captain," she called out excitedly, "I've got it. The silence isn't something that destroys civilizations. It's something that erases them completely. According to these records, it happens in cycles. Every few billion years, something sweeps across the galaxy and makes entire species simply cease to exist." "That's impossible," said Li Bo. No, it's not. Look at these star charts. The builders mapped dozens of galaxies and they all show the same pattern. Periods of development followed by complete emptiness, then new species evolving and the cycle starting over. Han Wu studied the ancient star maps. If this is true, then every species in our galaxy is in danger. That's right. And according to the countdown, the next cycle is about to begin. Outside, the standoff between human and alien fleets continued. Neither side was willing to back down, and neither side fully understood what they were fighting over. But inside the ancient structure, Dr. Kim Ara had found something that would change everything. The builders hadn't just left a warning about the silence. They had left instructions on how to survive it. The question was whether the galaxy's species could work together long enough to use them. Dr. Kim Ara had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at the ancient symbols flowing across the screens around her. She had finally cracked the main database of the precursor structure, and what she found made her hands shake. Captain Han Wu. "You need to see this immediately," she called out. Han Wu hurried over to her station. Around them, the ancient structure hummed with power as more systems came online. Each day, Kim Ara's access to the database grew deeper, and each day the discoveries became more frightening. "I've translated the core warning system," she said, pointing to the main display. The builders called themselves the Watchers. They weren't the first advanced civilization in this galaxy, and they knew they wouldn't be the last. What happened to them? The same thing that happened to the civilizations before them, and the civilizations before those. Kim Ara pulled up a series of galactic maps. "Look at these star charts. They show our galaxy at different time periods going back billions of years." Han Wu studied the displays. The earliest maps showed star systems full of activity and energy signatures that suggested advanced civilizations. But as the timeline moved forward, entire regions went dark, not destroyed but empty, as if nothing had ever lived there at all. The Watchers discovered that every few billion years, something called the silence sweeps across the galaxy. Kim Ara continued. "It doesn't destroy civilizations. It erases them from existence completely. No ruins, no artifacts, no memory that they ever existed." Lieutenant Park Tae looked up from his sensor station. "That's impossible. You can't erase something from existence." The Watchers thought so too until it happened to the civilizations before them. They spent thousands of years studying the phenomenon. The silence isn't a force or a weapon. It's something that exists outside normal space and time. Engineer Li Bo had been listening from his position near the door. "If this silence erases everything, how do we have these records?" Kim Ara smiled grimly. "Because the Watchers were smart. They built this structure at the very edge of the galaxy. In the space between galaxies, they discovered that the silence moves in patterns, and it always starts from the galactic center and moves outward. The rim is the last place it reaches." She pulled up another display showing a countdown timer. "According to their calculations, we have about 47 years until the next cycle begins." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Outside their ship, nearly 200 vessels from 7 different species maintained their tense standoff around the ancient structure. "There's more," Kim Ara said quietly. "The Watchers didn't just leave a warning. They left instructions on how to survive the silence." Han Wu leaned forward. "What kind of instructions?" "They call it a reality anchor. It's a technology that can create a bubble of reinforced space-time that the silence can't erase. But building one requires resources from across the entire galaxy and cooperation between all advanced species." "How big a bubble?" Kim Ara checked her notes. "Big enough to preserve the core systems of the galaxy. Maybe 1,000 star systems, not enough to save everyone, but enough to ensure that civilization survives to rebuild." Park Tae was running calculations on his computer. 1,000 systems? That would mean abandoning 90% of the galaxy. "Better than abandoning 100%, Han Wu said grimly. "What do these reality anchors require?" Kim Ara pulled up technical specifications that hurt to look at. The symbols and equations were so complex that the human mind could barely process them. Exotic matter, dimensional stabilizers, and something the Watchers call consciousness resonators. The technology is far beyond anything our species has ever built. What about the other species? Are their technologies advanced enough? Some of them, yes. The Altarians have mastered dimensional engineering. The Zephyrians work with exotic matter. The crystallines understand consciousness manipulation better than anyone. Individually, no single species can build a reality anchor. Together, it might be possible. Li Bo laughed bitterly. Except they're all outside pointing weapons at us and demanding access to this information. Then we need to change the situation, Han Wu decided. Kimara, how much of the database have you accessed? Maybe 20%. The deeper I go, the more complex the information becomes. Some of it requires direct neural interface to understand. What do you mean by direct neural interface? Kimara hesitated. The Watchers built this system to download information directly into the user's brain. It's faster than translation, but it's also dangerous. The human mind wasn't designed to process information at that level. Before Han Wu could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. Park Tae checked his sensors and went pale. Captain, something's happening at the Galactic Center. I'm picking up massive energy readings from our long-range communication array. Han Wu activated the main communication system and contacted the alien fleets. This is Captain Han Wu to all vessels. We're detecting unusual activity from the Galactic Center. Are your long-range sensors picking up anything? The Altarian commander responded first. We confirm massive energy disturbances originating from the galactic core. Multiple star systems appear to be changing. Changing how? Their energy signatures are fading. It's as if the stars themselves are going out. Kim Ara rushed to her console and activated the Watcher database's long-range sensors. The ancient technology was far more advanced than anything the modern species possessed. What she saw made her cry out in shock. It's starting, she whispered. The silence has begun. It's 47 years early. On the main screen, she displayed what the Watcher sensors were showing them. At the center of the galaxy, stars were not exploding or dying. They were simply ceasing to exist along with everything around them. The effect was spreading outward in a perfect sphere, consuming everything in its path. How fast is it moving? Han Wu asked. Kimara did quick calculations. At current speed, it will reach the outer rim in about 6 months, not 47 years. Something has accelerated the cycle. The implications hit everyone at once, all the political maneuvering, all the arguments about who had rights to the ancient structure. All of it was meaningless. In 6 months, everything they knew would cease to exist unless they could work together to build a reality anchor. Han Wu opened a communication channel to all the ships surrounding the structure. This is Captain Han Wu to all fleet commanders. I'm transmitting data that shows an immediate threat to all our civilizations. We need to talk. Within an hour, representatives from all 7 species were aboard the ancient structure. The Watchers had built conference rooms that could accommodate different alien physiologies, as if they had known this moment would come. Ambassador Yun Hai arrived on the fastest ship Earth could provide. Commander Choi Bin maintained defensive positions but ordered his fleet to stand down from active targeting. Kim Ara presented her findings to the assembled representatives. The room fell silent as she showed them images of star systems at the Galactic Center, simply vanishing from existence. The Watchers call this phenomenon the silence, she explained. It has happened before and it will happen again. Our only chance for survival is to work together to build what they call a reality anchor. The Zephyrian representative spoke first. Why should we trust human translations of ancient technology? Because we're all going to die if you don't, Han Wu replied bluntly. The Altarian commander studied the technical specifications Kim Ara had displayed. These requirements? No single species has all the necessary technologies. That's the point, Kim Ara said. The Watchers designed it that way. They wanted to force cooperation between species. How do we know this isn't a human trick to gain control of galactic politics? Asked the crystalline delegate. Before anyone could answer, Li Bo called out from the sensor station. The silence just consumed the Magellanic cluster. 3 billion stars gone in an instant. The room erupted in panicked communications as each species tried to contact their home governments. But Kim Ara was focused on something else. Deep in the Watcher database, she had found references to a volunteer requirement for the Reality Anchor project. Someone would need to undergo full neural interface with the ancient systems to guide the construction process. The volunteer would gain access to all Watcher knowledge but would lose their individual identity in the process. They would become something more than human. But they would also become something less. Kim Ara looked around the room at the arguing representatives and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. But first she needed to find someone willing to sacrifice their humanity to save everyone else. The question was, who would volunteer to stop being themselves in order to save the universe? Lieutenant Park Tae stood before the neural interface chamber deep inside the ancient structure. The room was filled with strange crystalline formations that pulsed with soft blue light. Dr. Kim Ara had explained what would happen if he went through with this, but understanding it and accepting it were two different things. "You don't have to do this," Captain Han-woo said for the 10th time. "We can find another way." Park Tae shook his head. "No, sir. We can't. The silence has already consumed 40% of the galaxy. We have maybe 2 months left, and we still don't understand how to build the reality anchor." Kim Ara checked her readings one more time. "The neural interface will give you access to all Watcher knowledge instantly, but the human brain wasn't designed for that much information. You'll become something else, something between human and Watcher. Will I still be me?" Kim Ara hesitated. "Some of you will remain, but most of what makes you Park Tae will be replaced by Watcher memories and knowledge that go back billions of years." Around them, the combined fleets of 7 species worked frantically to gather resources for the Reality Anchor project. The political arguments had stopped the moment everyone realized they were all going to die together. Ambassador Yoon Hai had negotiated the fastest alliance in galactic history out of pure necessity. "The crystallines have agreed to provide consciousness resonators," she reported over the communication system. "The Altarians are building dimensional stabilizers. But without someone who fully understands Watcher technology, we're just guessing at how to put it all together." Park Tae looked around at his friends and colleagues one last time. He was 26 years old and had joined the Deep Space Service to see the galaxy. He had never expected to sacrifice his identity to save it. "I'll do it," he said quietly. Engineer Lee Bo grabbed his arm. "Park Tae, think about this. You'll lose everything that makes you human. If I don't do it, everyone loses everything anyway." Captain Han-woo saluted his young officer. "If you're sure about this, then we'll make sure your sacrifice counts." Park Tae stepped into the neural interface chamber. The crystalline formations around him began to glow brighter, and he felt a strange tingling sensation as the ancient technology scanned his brain patterns. "Initiating neural merge," Kim Ara announced. "Park Tae, if you want to stop, you have about 10 seconds before the process becomes irreversible." Park Tae closed his eyes and thought about his family back on Earth, about the friends he'd made on the Pathfinder, about the billions of people who would never know that he had given up his humanity to save them. "Do it," he whispered. The change was immediate and overwhelming. Park Tae screamed as billions of years of Watcher memories flooded into his mind. He saw the rise and fall of countless civilizations, watched entire species evolve from primitive animals to galactic powers only to be consumed by the silence. He saw the first time the silence had appeared, emerging from a dimension where the normal laws of physics didn't apply. He understood now that it wasn't malicious or intelligent. It was simply a natural process like a forest fire or a hurricane that periodically cleaned the universe of complex matter and energy, but the Watchers had found a way to hide from it. When Park Tae opened his eyes, they glowed with the same blue light as the crystalline formations around him. His voice was different when he spoke, carrying harmonics that made everyone who heard him feel slightly uncomfortable. "The merger is complete," he said, but it was no longer just Park Tae speaking. "We have access to all Watcher knowledge. The reality anchor can be built, but there are complications." Captain Han-woo stepped forward carefully. "What kind of complications?" "The anchor cannot protect the entire galaxy. The energy requirements are too great. We can preserve approximately 1,200 star systems in the galactic core, but everything else will be consumed by the silence." Kim Ara looked at her calculations. 1,200 systems might be enough to maintain galactic civilization, but not Earth, Park Tae said with eerie calm. "Earth is in the outer spiral arm. It cannot be included in the protected zone without compromising the entire project." The bridge fell silent. They had all known that sacrifices would be necessary, but hearing that their homeworld would be abandoned was different. Commander Choi Bin's voice came over the communication system. "Are you saying we have to choose between saving the galaxy and saving Earth?" "That is correct. The reality anchor must be positioned at the galactic center to be most effective. Systems more than 15,000 light-years from the core cannot be protected." Ambassador Yoon Hai had been listening from the command center of her diplomatic vessel. "How long do we have to make this decision?" Park Tae consulted Watcher knowledge that now flowed through his transformed mind like water. "The silence will reach the outer spiral arms in 43 days. All construction must be completed before then, or the anchor will fail. Over the next week, the greatest construction project in galactic history began. Ships from 7 species converged on the galactic core, carrying exotic matter and dimensional stabilizers. The crystallines provided consciousness resonators that could anchor reality itself. The Altarians built massive dimensional engines. Even the normally isolationist voidwalkers contributed their mastery of space-time manipulation. But on Earth and the human colonies, a different kind of construction was taking place. Emergency evacuation ships were being built as fast as possible. Humanity had 43 days to relocate as many people as possible to the protected core systems. "We can't move everyone," reported the evacuation coordinator to Ambassador Yoon. "Hey, even with every ship we have, we can only relocate maybe 30% of the human population. Then we save who we can," she replied with steel in her voice. Back at the construction site, Park Tai directed the assembly of technologies that no single species could have built alone. His transformed consciousness could see how all the pieces fit together, but his remaining human emotions struggled with what they were doing. "We are abandoning billions of people to save millions," he said to Captain Han Wu during a brief private moment. "Would you rather abandon everyone to save no one? The human part of me says there has to be another way. The watcher part of me knows there isn't." As construction continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. The silence had consumed the entire galactic center except for the area protected by the partially completed reality anchor. Thousands of star systems vanished every day, taking with them civilizations that had existed for millions of years. On Earth, riots broke out as people realized that most of them would be left behind. Some demanded that the reality anchor project be abandoned in favor of trying to evacuate everyone. Others insisted that it was better to save some people than lose everyone. Kim Ara monitored the construction from the ancient Watcher structure. "The anchor is 80% complete," she reported. "But we're running out of time. The silence will reach us in 6 days. Can we finish in time?" Han Wu asked. Park Tae's glowing eyes reflected calculations beyond human comprehension. "Yes, but there's one final requirement we haven't discussed. The reality anchor needs a permanent operator. Someone must stay connected to the system forever to maintain the protective field." "What does that mean?" "It means someone must volunteer to become part of the anchor itself. They will live forever, but only as consciousness merged with the machine. They will guide and protect the preserved systems for as long as the galaxy exists." Captain Han Wu realized what Park Tae was offering. "You want to be the permanent operator? I'm already more machine than human. It makes sense for me to complete the transformation, but you'll be alone. Forever." Park Tae smiled with what remained of his humanity. "I won't be alone. I'll have the memories of the Watchers, and I'll be protecting everyone we managed to save." As the reality anchor neared completion, the last evacuation ships left Earth and the outer colonies. 70% of humanity would die when the silence arrived, but 30% would survive in the protected core systems. It was the hardest decision any species had ever made, but it was the only choice that led to survival. The question now was whether the reality anchor would work, and whether Park Tae's sacrifice would be enough to hold back the silence when it finally arrived. The reality anchor came online just as the silence reached the outer edge of the protected zone. Park Tae, now permanently merged with the ancient Watcher technology, felt the moment of contact like a physical blow. The silence pressed against the protective field like an ocean trying to crush a soap bubble. "Anchor field is holding," he reported to the command center, his voice echoing from speakers throughout the galactic core. "But the pressure is enormous. I can feel it testing every part of the field for weakness." Captain Han Wu watched from the bridge of the Pathfinder, now stationed near the anchor's control center. Around them, 1,200 star systems continued to exist in their protective bubble, while the rest of the galaxy simply ceased to be. Outside the field, there was nothing. Not empty space, not darkness, but true nothingness. "How long can you maintain the field?" he asked. "Forever, if necessary," Park Tae replied. "The Watcher technology draws power directly from the fabric of space-time itself. But Captain, there's something you need to know. The silence isn't random. It's guided." Dr. Kim Ara looked up from her console in alarm. "What do you mean, guided?" "Now that I'm connected to the anchor, I can sense the silence directly. There's an intelligence behind it, something vast and alien that exists outside our dimension. It uses the silence to harvest advanced civilizations. Harvest them for what? Park Tae's response sent chills through everyone listening. Knowledge, consciousness. The silence doesn't just erase civilizations. It absorbs everything they learned and experienced. Somewhere outside our reality, there's an entity that has consumed the memories of 1 trillion species across billions of years. Ambassador Yoon Hae had been coordinating refugee settlements in the protected systems. Can this entity break through the reality anchor? Not directly, but it's learning from our resistance. Each time a civilization builds an anchor, the entity studies it and becomes better at defeating the next one. Engineer Lee Bo was monitoring the field generators. Then we're just buying time until it figures out how to break through? Not exactly. The Watchers discovered something important in their final years. The entity that controls the silence has a weakness. It exists outside normal spacetime, which makes it powerful but also limits it. It can only interact with our reality during specific alignments of dimensional barriers. Captain Han Wu studied the readouts from the anchor systems. How often do these alignments happen? According to Watcher records, approximately every 4 billion years. The last alignment was when this cycle of the silence began. The next one won't be for another 4 billion years. So we're safe until then? The protected systems are safe. But the entity will spend those 4 billion years studying our defenses and preparing new attacks. When the next cycle begins, it will be ready for reality anchors. Kim Ara realized the implications first. Unless we use that time to find a way to fight back. Exactly. The Watchers never had enough time to develop offensive capabilities. They were always reacting to the silence, never acting against it. But we have 4 billion years to prepare. Over the following months, the survivors in the protected systems began to adapt to their new reality. The 1,200 preserved star systems contained representatives from all major galactic species, along with enough genetic diversity and technology to rebuild civilization. But it wasn't the same civilization they had lost. The shared experience of surviving the silence had changed everyone. Old political divisions seemed meaningless when entire species had been reduced to a few thousand survivors each. Commander Choi Bin established the new Galactic Defense Force, combining the best technologies and tactics from all surviving species. We have 4 billion years to prepare for the next cycle, he announced to the Joint Command. We're going to use every day of it. The crystallines began developing new forms of consciousness manipulation that might be able to affect the entity controlling the silence. The Altarians worked on dimensional weapons that could strike targets outside normal space-time. Even the Voidwalkers contributed their knowledge of interdimensional travel. But the most important work was being done by the humans. We have something the other species don't. Ambassador Yoon Hae explained to the Galactic Council. We have our connection to the Watcher technology. Park Tae can communicate with the entity during dimensional alignments. We might be able to learn its weaknesses. Dr. Kim Ara had established the Institute for Silence Studies, dedicated to understanding their enemy. The entity has consumed thousands of galactic civilizations, but it's never encountered one that survived long enough to study it in return. We might be the first species capable of fighting back. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The protected systems developed technologies that surpassed anything the previous galactic civilization had achieved. They learned to travel between dimensions, to manipulate consciousness itself, and to build weapons that could affect entities existing outside normal reality. Park Tae remained connected to the reality anchor, guiding and protecting the survivors while slowly developing new capabilities. His consciousness had expanded far beyond human limitations, but he retained enough of his original personality to remember why he was fighting. I can feel the entity sometimes, he reported during one of his regular communications with the Galactic Council. It's curious about us. No civilization has ever survived its harvesting before. It's trying to understand how we did it. Can you communicate with it directly? Asked the current human representative. Sometimes during dimensional fluctuations, it doesn't think the way we do. To it, consciousness is just another form of matter to be collected and studied. It doesn't understand concepts like sacrifice or cooperation. Then that's our advantage, the crystalline delegate observed. It can copy our technologies, but it can't copy our ability to work together. 1,000 years after the silence, the first interdimensional probe was launched. It traveled outside normal spacetime to scout the entity's domain. What it found was beyond imagination, a vast collection of harvested civilizations, their knowledge and memory stored in crystalline matrices the size of solar systems. There are millions of them, the probe operator reported. Every galactic civilization that ever achieved spaceflight is preserved there, but not alive. They're like books in a library, their experiences cataloged and filed away. Can they be restored? Someone asked. Park Tae considered the question with his expanded consciousness. Theoretically, yes. If we could defeat the entity and access its storage systems, we might be able to resurrect the lost civilizations. Not bring back the individuals who died, but restore their species and their knowledge. 10,000 years later, the first-dimensional weapon was tested. It could strike targets across interdimensional barriers and had the power to damage the entity's storage systems. But using it would alert the entity to their capabilities. We have one chance, the Galactic Defense Force commander explained to the assembled leaders. When the next dimensional alignment occurs, we can launch a surprise attack. But if we fail, the entity will be ready for us. There won't be another opportunity. 100,000 years passed. The protected civilization had grown beyond anything that had existed before the silence. They had colonies in other dimensions, consciousness that spanned multiple realities, and weapons that could reshape the fundamental forces of the universe. But they never forgot why they were preparing. The next alignment approaches. Park Tae announced to a civilization that now spanned realities. In 50,000 years, we'll have our chance to end the cycle of silence forever. Captain Hanwoo had died long ago, but his descendants carried on his mission. Dr. Kim Ara's institute had become a multidimensional research organization. Ambassador Yoon Hai's diplomatic traditions had evolved into the first truly universal government. And at the center of it all, Park Tae maintained the reality anchor and prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of not just their civilization, but every civilization the entity had ever harvested. The question was no longer whether they could survive the silence. The question was whether they could free every species that had ever fallen to it. In 50,000 years, they would have their answer. At the edge of the galaxy, humanity had found its purpose, not as explorers or conquerors, but as guardians of life itself across all realities and all time.